I'm Niel Locke, and I'm a member of the Nevada County Historic Landmarks Commission. And today we're interviewing two long-timers of this community, Wally Krill to my right and Bill Falconi to my right. And we're going to just talk a little bit about this building, what the changes they've seen this building has gone through. And then we're going to go on to the freeway and what changes that made in the community. Wally? Any comments on this building?
I first recall coming into this building when it was Duffy's Success. And one of the main reasons we came in here was tacos from Taco Joe that had the hottest sauce known to man. There were 2 or 3 booths that had high backs on them, up, I don't know, 3 or 4 feet, whatever it was. And of course the bar was here. But that's my earliest recollection, was coming in here to have something to eat. That would have been probably in the 60s sometime. As an adult, by then I could have adult beverages. Bill?
You were an adult then already? Well, I remember the Success also. Now, what's interesting is I went to work for my mother's cousin, who had a grocery store at the bottom of Broad Street in '57. I was not even old enough to drive, but I did drive. And one of the things he sold, he had a grocery store, but he had the concession for ice. And it was Old Union Ice Company out of Sacramento. We used to take the ice in 300-pound blocks, and then you crush it up into 50-pound sacks. And in those days, you'd deliver it to restaurants and bars and stuff because there were no ice machines. So that was kind of the first thing I did. And I'd do Friday and Saturday nights, and there was 13 accounts in Nevada City. And the Success was one of them. And I'd come here, and I think sacked ice was 35 cents a sack or something like that. Used to take it and put it behind a bar. And I was 14, 15.
So I brought that up because in the end of March, we were plaquing this building for its historic value in the community. So now let's go on to the best one, the freeway. And the changes that...
Well, Bill can correct me, but as I recall, Caltrans approached some of the fathers in Nevada City in the 50s about adding more capacity to the access between Grass Valley and Nevada City. There was talk, I was told, about perhaps relocating the freeway around towards Pioneer Park to avoid downtown. And some of the fathers, I think Dick Merritt was one of them,
Downey Clinch.
and Downey lobbied to have the freeway come right through town, because the fear was that if the town was bypassed by the freeway, that it would just simply dry up. So today there would be shooting in the streets if you tried to do that. But my grandmother had a restaurant on Broad Street that is now the entrance to the freeway. There was Long John, several different places. But as an aside, and Bill is probably aware of this too, that the contracting firm, when they were midway through, and I think perhaps before the thing collapsed here in town, the owner was owned by a father and son. One of them died from some kind of disease. The other one was killed in a plane crash. Mm-hmm. As a result, they went broke. The Hartford had bonded the job. The only reason I'm aware of that is my father was working for the Hartford at the time. They hired a contractor to come in and finish it. So it was kind of complicated. Bill could give you more specifics about the reason for the bridge collapse.
Well, actually, for Wally being 90, his back is pretty good. I heard that song and dance about around the town and so on. I've heard a couple of other things too. One is Nevada City didn't want the freeway as much as Grass Valley did. Grass Valley pushed it more than Nevada City. That's what I was told. Now, I was pretty young in those days, but, and I was in college and I was kind of away. But Wally's right. The guy that was supposed to build the thing, they built it, surprisingly, they built the Nevada City section first, and then the Grass Valley section second. And exactly what Wally said, you know, the guy got killed, and the bonding company took it over. They hired Granite T&M to build it. So Granite built it, and it sat for a while the paperwork was being done. And I remember they had cleared it, and my dad said, "Well, it's the perfect fire break," and you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, what do I remember? Well, one thing I was told too, and I believe it's true, if you go to Grass Valley, the freeway's overhead. It's above town. But in Nevada City, it's below town. That's because Nevada City didn't want the freeway to block the town look. So Nevada City did, so Caltrans came off of Banner Mountain and came down and went under Nevada City, whereas in Grass Valley, they're over.
Oh, all right.
Yeah. And
I think, again, the fear was visibility, that a
Yeah.
few of the merchants in town just wanted to be sure
yeah, left alone.
that the tourists could find Nevada City.
And I believe it made a difference ultimately to Nevada City's look based on. But anyway, that's and in those days, somebody told me too, because I'm an engineer for the city. I've been an engineer all my life, and they said that they debated whether to put an off ramp at Brunswick at the basin down there because there wasn't enough traffic going through there in those days.
Yes.
But the main reason they built the freeway was, and Wally will remember this, the cars and if you think there's traffic now, or you should have been on the old highway before they built the freeway, because the logging trucks and the cars were, it was like, you know,
The road was packed with logging
it was
trucks.
packed constantly.
Yes.
And there was no other way, and there was no way to get around them.
Absolutely.
And so you followed them all the way to Grass Valley, and in those days, they lumbered too, you know, they weren't
Right.
very fast. How did it change the town? Well, it split Nevada City, because my cousin, who had the Plaza Grocery, you know, business went downhill after he.
Oh, John Spoffy's
Yeah,
did?
the business went downhill quite a bit after that. And so he shut her down in '72, and the freeway was finished roughly '68 in there somewhere. And that had been a grocery store for 100 years.
Yeah.
But the small grocery stores were going away anyway. So, and you know, a common argument in the engineering world that I've heard, and it's before my time too, that Caltrans made a classic mistake. They should have built an expressway, not a freeway, because there should have been off and on ramps with lights on it rather than a freeway, because a lot of streets in Nevada City, Grass Valley, and in the county, all the way through, got shut off, you know, like Bost Avenue and Main Street, and, you know, in Grass Valley too. Now in Grass Valley, where it's overhead, they kind of went under them a little different. But
Well, you probably remember better than I, the first approach in Brunswick to get on the freeway to come to
Yeah.
Nevada City, you had to cross
yeah,
oncoming traffic. That was the only way to get onto the freeway to come this way.
yeah,
They eventually built the one.
yeah, they built the Leafs.
Yes.
You know.
But when it first opened, and for several years, really, it was almost suicide turn there because a lot of the traffic moved too fast, and it was very difficult to make that turn to come to Nevada City.
And that was only, there was a couple of those like that. Too.
Yes.
And there was no Dorsey Drive either.
Right.
Dorsey Drive changed a lot of things too.
Yes.
And that the mess that was at Idaho, Maryland wasn't very nice either. That before the roundabout and that was a horrendous thing right there. But anyway, and it's awkward in these smaller mining towns to build a freeway. If they'd have built an expressway, you could have gotten on at grade level, see?
Right.
And it wouldn't have been, it would have been quite different, but it is what it is. And I think to this day that the freeway is far below capacity, and they haven't changed it hardly at all in terms of widths of lanes of anything or anything like that. But You know, and Wally can attest to this. Before the freeway, you know, to make an example, is Nevada City was more like Downeyville. It was kind of at the end of a back road. It wasn't on the main drag, and it was out there. And so people didn't come as much because it was out of the way.
Right.
And so kind of the freeway and 49 opened up that. Because in the early mining days, they never came that way. They came from Marysville and came up the river from that side to service the mines. They never came from Auburn in that area. That was the only reason Auburn in those areas are there is because of railroad tracks.
Well, and as Bill said, that there were so many buildings torn down when they had to build the freeway.
Oh, yeah.
Everything from Long John's Tavern to my grandmother's Rainbow Inn to the hotel annex to, it was a dollar store. There was 16 to 1, another bar. A number of buildings came down, and Nevada City was still struggling post-war.
Yeah.
Nevada City was down to somewhere in the neighborhood of 11 or 1,200 people at its low spot. When the mines closed, everybody left. And again, I think that the concern was getting this town back. The freeway arguably was supposed to be part of an answer. And I think, again, it was the fear of the few remaining merchants that if something wasn't done, the town would dry up.
And I think it was part of an answer.
Yes.
I did think it changed things. And it forced Nevada City to come up with a historical district because they wanted to preserve what they have.
Yes.
That came as a result of the freeway and losing all the buildings that they did. So sometimes things, you know, are not necessarily all good or all bad. They just are. And, you know, the other thing that people don't realize is, you know, the freeway was a sign of the times. It was the way they did things, and you have to, you know, it's like people say, oh, well, the miners did this and they did that. Well, that was their time, you know, and you can't really go there so much.
Well, and it is, as Bill says, it is absolutely true that in those days it was survival.
Exactly.
Today, literally, you'd have shooting in the streets if you tried to do the same thing
Well,
today. I
sure.
mean, it just, but at the time, it was a matter of survival.
Well,
And
you
the
know,
way-
my mother was born in downtown Nevada City 107 years, 6 years ago or so now. But they knew Nevada City. And when Franklin Roosevelt closed the mines in 1942, they call it L208, it was his executive order, he closed all the gold and silver mines because he wanted to use the miners for strategic metals that they needed for the war, like copper, lead, zinc, tin, the things they needed for the war effort. Now that's what they said. My dad always suspicioned that he closed the mines because they were historically Republican. and my dad used to say that, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Anyway, we got kind of,
Anyway, yeah, so the freeway did change.
it brought a
changed.
lot of people here.
It brought people, it changed things, I think it you know, honestly put vibration, you know, made the city more vibrant. I think it allowed, people felt like it wasn't in nowhere anymore. I think that's good.
Because I remember hearing that in '58, that's when the city council got together and they said, what can we do? 'Cause,
Yeah.
Commercial Street was all boarded up.
Yeah.
Broad Street was starting to get boarded up. And they said, what do we have?
I don't know
We
if
have old buildings.
it wasn't all boarded up. That's not
But,
true.
but there was some.
Because I know, because in the 40s, I walked to the Nevada City Elementary School. Now, there was a number of places that were gone and were boarded up. But, you know, like down on Commercial Street, you know, there was the old Roma Grocery. It was
Yeah.
there. And then there was Dave Richards' meat shop. It was there.
Yeah.
And they were alive, but in between they were closed. Yeah, there was a, and Ed Barrich. Ed Barrich is the one that had the Pete's Montana.
Pete's,
But
oh yeah,
that
Pete's
was
Month.
that I ran.
Yeah.
But she was there. So
Well,
I mean,
that was
there
before-
places, though, it wasn't all boarded up.
But this is
People
Nevada.
say that,
Yeah,
but
but
Well,
it's,
this
then
is
we had the
Nevada City,
explosion.
and we'll save that.
We had the explosion on Commercial Street with Framastanles, remember?
that's right.
And were you around?
Which
when
is the old
Yes.
Montana.
Yeah.
Yes, Pete's.
And yeah, that was an interesting time.
But that's, the theater is considered the oldest, one of the 5 oldest continuing operation theaters in the state.
Well, Fred Forsman was also,
Yeah,
I think,
he
very
was big
involved
in it.
Right.
early on in that. And he just passed away not too long ago, as I recall, about
Yeah.
the last
Not
few
long.
years.
Yeah, Sally Lewis, you know, the reason Sally Lewis was successful is her husband was a doctor and she had resources.
Yes.
And so she put a lot of, I'm not here to talk about what I don't really know, but I'm almost guessing that she put a lot of her own money into that.
She had to. But she also started the Landmarks Commission.
So she was,
But she was a driving force.
yeah, she
And
was.
she knew a lot of people all over the state. And
Yeah,
she was a
she-
fascinating person.
Yeah, she was.
She loved the telephone.
Mhm.
If you came to her with a good project, let's say $5,000, you talked to Sally, she agreed, within an hour, she'd have $5,000 for you. She was the most amazing person I've ever met.
You
Outside
know-
of you two.
You mentioned
she really
that.
was.
Yeah.
You're surprising. You know, there's people like that that pass through history that nobody remembers them anymore, but they really made a difference.
You mentioned that.
That theater was a dead duck. You know?
Yeah, it was. It was.
Well, thank you very much, both of you. We've covered the 2 points we wanted to cover, and I know we can go on for hours and hours and hours, and we'll continue on the next series because this is going to be an ongoing event with the Landmarks Commission. So thank you very much and enjoy the day.
Thank you.
Our pleasure. Thank you.